Hi there, I'm Tony Reese, and welcome to My Life Lessons featuring stories from immigrants. And today my special guest is Waldo Alvarado. Welcome.
Thank you. So nice to be here.
Thank you. So take a moment and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yes, I would like first, from the personal level, I would like to tell you that I've been married for 33 years to the most beautiful woman in the world,
Wonderful.
My wife. And I have 3 sons, and they are grown up. And then I have this beautiful granddaughter. She's only 3, Natalia Esperanza, and that brings me a lot of joy. And that's from the personal level. At the professional level, I can tell you that I've been in the business of education for more than 30 years. And I've been fortunate to have this experience as an educator, both overseas and right in Pennsylvania. And actually, I've been a classroom teacher since middle school all the way to master level classes. And actually, when I was back in my home country, I was a full-time professor, one of the top universities there, the Universidad Centroamericana, Central American University. It's a Jesuit university. And I was a faculty member in the Department of Psychology. But then I came to the US, and I was working as a guidance counselor, and I shouldn't be using guidance. See, the right label now is school counselor, professional school counselor. I don't want to upset my colleagues out there. So I did that for 8 years. Then I went back to school and got my K-12 principal certification. And I was promoted to high school assistant principal. And since 2014, I've been working in central office. And all of this, within the public school system, the Reading Schools district. So you can see that education has been part of my background. But, my background is actually psychology. I'm a licensed psychologist back home. And also, I've been doing some diversity training and cultural competency training here in the States. And I've been fortunate, to be in different places, like Massachusetts, LA, Atlanta, Tampa, and I'm supposed to go to Seattle, next month, so it's exciting.
It is an honor to have such an esteemed guest today.
Thank you.
So thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
So let's go into the project.
Mm-hmm.
When did you immigrate to the United States, and what country are you from?
I am from El Salvador. And I was thinking about this question, and the best answer is 20 years ago when I was 20. So, and I was thinking a lot about this. I came to the US 28 years ago. And at that time, I was 28 years old. So this experience of immigration split my life in 2 parts, and right now it's an equal half. So I have spent half of my life overseas in El Salvador and half of my life in the States. And it's been quite a journey. And having had, those 2 life experiences, I feel blessed and fortunate because I spend, half of my life in a different world, different culture. And then coming over here, and after 28 years, I feel that I belong in here too. So I have.
What was your reason for coming here, and did you find it to be an easy process?
Well, the immediate reason was that at the time I was a faculty member at this university that I mentioned before. And the American Embassy came out with this opportunity to do a master's degree, and it was a full scholarship. And at that point, I was teaching at the Department of Psychology, and I felt that I was ready because I taught English as a second language, and that's how I pay my way through college. Because believe it or not, I taught myself English. I learned, through the old timers, big vinyl long plays, and those tape lessons. So I learned the language, I taught English, then I got my professional degree, and then when this opportunity came, I thought that I was ready. And I was crazy enough to apply, and it's a very competitive process. Thousands of people apply. And I was one of the lucky ones. I guess it was like 3 or 5 people who got it. So I came, with this scholarship to do a master's degree. And I didn't have any clue as to the kind of program this was. It was only when I came here, that I realized how prestigious is the Fulbright program. So I was a Fulbright scholar. And I came to an Ivy League school, the University of Pennsylvania, to do my master's degree. But that was, the immediate reason why I came. Education, get a master's degree with a scholarship. But deep inside, we're humans. And we're always in this quest for a better life. And my experience is no different than the people who came to this country, in the last 500 years as immigrants. Mm-hmm. There's been waves and waves of immigrants coming to this great nation, and deep inside we share the same thing, the quest for a better life, the quest for a better future, for myself, my family, and also the community. So that's the reason.
Was it easy for you to make that? Congratulations, first of all, on being awarded such a wonderful opportunity.
Sure.
But making that transition, was it easy?
Well, and there are 2 parts to that answer. It was easy, yes, from the legal and immigration standpoint and the financial aspect. Mm-hmm. I mean, that was, an easy one because everything was taken care of, And but then the other piece is just the idea of leaving everything and everybody behind. I mean, that's a huge risk anybody can take. Because at the end of the day, it's you and this suitcase packed with dreams and hopes. And there's no guarantee that on the other side, you're gonna find success or what you're looking for. And when I say leaving behind everybody, the scholarship only covered myself. Didn't cover my wife and my 2 little kids. And back in the 80s in El Salvador, if you check the history, it was chaos. There was a civil war, and that resulted like in 85,000 people being killed, including my professors, from that university. So I remember I came in 1989, and it was by myself. And then in December, I did all the arrangements to bring my wife and my 2 kids to join me. And then the transition to having them with me, to have dependents with me, was not easy. But we managed, and whatever hardships or tribulation never compare to what life was back in El Salvador, back in the 80s.
If you were to put your finger on one characteristic, which I know is difficult, mm-hmm. but one characteristic that it takes deep down inside mm-hmm. to do what you did, what would that be?
Is the aspirations, this drive that comes from within, to accomplish your goals. So it has to do with hopes and dreams, and that is a huge leap of faith. Mm-hmm. And I compare this, like diving, from this big rock into, the swimming pool, and you don't know what you're gonna find in there. So yes, confidence, but also I have to say, everybody talks about opportunities, but I also like to say that we need to be ready when those opportunities show up.
Or brave enough.
Or brave enough, yes, that's another one.
Where do you find your greatest inspiration here in the United States?
I would say this inspiration comes from the positive energy of recent immigrants. And as I mentioned, I work in the public school system, and we serve close to 20% of English learners. And they come from 40 plus different countries, and they speak 30 plus different languages. And when I was an assistant principal and a counselor, I was fortunate enough to interact with newcomers. And you can see the glow in their eyes. They have this hope, this dream, this American dream, I'm gonna make it here. And that's a source of inspiration for me. The fact that we have all this new energy coming into our system. And not only that, they bring a lot of assets to the table.
And additional opportunities.
Additional opportunities. But I want to dwell on the assets because sometimes, we are with this mentality that they are a liability or a burden. But then if you look at what they bring to the table, just think about what I just said, 30, 40 plus different languages. I mean, that's a wealth right there.
And that's what I mean. They're also helping others create opportunities.
Create opportunities,
by sharing those assets.
Exactly. And then, they have not only the dreams, they have a way of navigating the system and the persistence, and the endurance. So I think that's something that really inspires me, just to see them, how they rise up to the challenge and they can thrive and achieve success.
What has been your greatest life lesson to date?
There are so many, and I think, and this is something that I mentioned before, in this quest for a better life, you don't have to give up who you are. And sometimes, and looking at history, I remember, in the 60s and the 70s, people who want to be successful, and they come from different ethnic groups, they change their names, just to have a bigger market. And they pretty much give up, their identity. And one of the things that I have experienced firsthand is that you don't have to do that. There's a lot of pressure to assimilate and to deny some dimensions of your identity. But the lesson that I have learned is that, that you don't have to do that. And actually, to be successful in this society, you have to be a multicultural and multilingual chameleon.
Mm.
And one of the lessons that I have learned is that you have to be appropriate and adequate depending on the situation.
How have you applied that life lesson in the United States?
Yes, with my own kids and also my students, I emphasize that point. And I speak to them about this concept of code switching and being able and having, this ability to function in two different worlds, two different contexts. Like have a nice breakfast in Spanish with your family, arroz y habichuelas or whatever you eat, for breakfast, and then going into your professional spaces and be appropriate, with your American colleagues and, share the culture, the language and whatever, and there's nothing wrong with that. So you have this that's why I call it the chameleon, multicultural chameleon, which is an asset. And that's something that I tell my students and my own kids. That's something that you need to be proud of. Yes. And in school, another application is that I try to create that space for my students. And this is something that in the literature they call identity-safe spaces, where they don't feel the pressure, a threat to who they are. So you have to provide them a lot of what I call BAV. And that's a new word for you. BAV stands for VABB. So the V is validating who the person in front of you is, valuing, what they bring to the table and who they are. That's the V. The A is for affirmation. Mm-hmm. And don't send the message that something is wrong with you and I'm gonna fix you. No, it's just to affirm who they are. And the BB is bridge building, because they come from different, environments. And they need to learn the American way to function and be successful. So you need to build this bridge. And the last B is build them with the skills, that they need to succeed. So that's the VAV. So you need to do the fabulous thing with the kids, valuing, affirming, build them up, and build bridges with them.
What a great application of a life lesson. How do you stay connected to your country's traditions?
Oh, being a first generation and coming here, when I was an adult, that was pretty easy because I was set in my ways, and there's no way that I can get rid of my accent or my background, cultural background. And I would say the best way to keep in touch with your tradition is keeping the 5 F's alive. 5 F's, what are you talking about here? So we have 5 F's. The first one is family, traditions and values. And in the Latino culture, we don't focus only on the nuclear family. Families are extended families. And sometimes the compadres and people that are close to you, they are not blood family, but still you consider them like family. So the first F is for family, and that is traveling back home once in a while, when there's opportunity, and hosting family members. All of my family lives in El Salvador. My mother and my brothers and one sister. And actually my mom, she comes in the summer and she will spend 1 month with us. I have another brother in Toronto, Canada. She goes there and spends another month. So that's a way to nurture, those traditions, just being connected with the family. That's the first F. The second F has to do with your first language, keeping that alive. Mm-hmm. And nowadays it's so easy, with social media, the WhatsApp and then it's just to have, handy all these cultural things, that are connected with the first language. Mm-hmm. Your books, your movies, your magazines, your radios, your TV. And it's interesting that on my cable TV, I got like 30 plus different channels in Spanish. So there's no way that's gonna, and it helps a lot with my kids. Mm-hmm. And then when you look at Spanish literature, we have these giants, historical giants, Nobel Prize winners, like Gabriel Garcia Marquez and all those guys. And it's amazing just to enjoy, what they have to offer. So first language is the second F. The other one is faith, and that's one of the things that I keep telling my kids, make sure that your priest speaks Spanish, your lawyer speaks Spanish, right? And your doctor speaks Spanish. So there are nothing get lost in translation, right? So when it comes to faith, it's just getting involved in church, and there are so many groups in there, and that allows for this interaction and that connection, and it's nice, to have those conversations in Spanish, and people who share your culture. And I think that's the same, in America for other groups. Mm-hmm. Sunday morning, you will see that people pretty much will go to churches where people look like them.
Yes.
So faith is the third F. The fourth is food. The food, and we love food. Mm-hmm. Yeah, mm-hmm. And we had such a variety of food, and it's so nice, to go to a Colombian restaurant to eat pupusas, Salvadorian pupusas somewhere else. And my American colleagues enjoy that. So, and they ask, "Hey, Waldo, so where are we going today?" So that's And
then your fifth.
And the fifth is I mentioned friends. Mm-hmm.
I don't believe you have.
Yeah, that's the next one, friends. Okay. And it's so nice, to have this get together, with friends from all over the world and those 20 plus different Latin American countries, and have a nice experience, with my Dominican friends, the Cubans, Puerto Ricans, Mexicans, Argentinians. The variety is so rich, and so nice. So even though sometimes we argue about the meaning of some words, right? Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, we all have a good time.
Well, we only have a couple more questions for the project.
Okay.
What has surprised you the most about being here?
Do you want me to give you the positive surprise or the not so positive surprise?
Either one, or both.
Let's do the positive one. The surprise is that how generous are the American people. When they see somebody that has a plan for success, that is committed, I mean, they will support you 100%. American people are good people, very generous. I'm talking about the people, right? Mm-hmm. And I am a testament to that. I mean, I came to an Ivy League school and I spent $0 to have that kind of education. Where can you get that, you know? And that's one of the main points that I emphasize with my own students. Good grades are important. And if you take care of business, then people will take care of you. You can go to a top university, you know, for free. Now the challenge is to get into those schools, right?
Yes. Yes.
That's the challenge. So that's, you know, a positive surprise, because I have seen that, you know, with some of our students as well. Now, the not so positive surprise is, you know, the political climate in the last few years. And sometimes it feels like we're going back, you know, to a place that, you know, happened like 200 years ago. And I'm talking about, you know, the narrative and using immigrants as scapegoats and the intolerance or the hatred. And civil rights, you know, has been around for a long time. So something like this is not going to stop it. If anything, it's going to become stronger. But it's a surprise, you know, and it's sad that in the last 3 years we have seen something that we never dreamed of seeing, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
What has brought you the greatest joy since arriving in the United States?
I would say to bear witness of success, you know, especially of the marginalized, the smallest among us, the most vulnerable. And immigrants, you know, fall into that category, some sector of immigrants. So that brings me a lot of joy just to see, you know, how they thrive, how they persist, and how they succeed. And at this point, I would like to share with you a powerful story that happened in Rain High, and it's happening, you know, all the time. In 2011, you know, we graduated more than 800 students. And of course, you know, in the American system, it's highly competitive, the ranking, yeah. And the student that came on the number one position, the valedictorian, is a kid who came from Mexico. He was in second grade when he first came in here. He went through the ESL program. And it is so inspiring to see that he was the valedictorian of the 2011 class. Then he got a full ride to go to Johns Hopkins to do pre-med. And the last time I heard from him, he's at Temple finishing his medical doctor. Isn't that inspiring?
Yes, it
is. Oh my God.
Very.
Yes. Just like people, you know, will camp outside Best Buy when the new video game, you know, is coming. I think I will camp outside his clinic when he comes to town.
Our final question. If you could describe in one sentence what being here means to you, what would that sentence be?
The sentence, I think it will be this. If you really want to move ahead in life here in the United States, think and behave like an immigrant. And that phrase is not mine. You know, that phrase came out in this book that is called The World is Flat by Tom Friedman, and that's what he said. Actually, he says this, you know, if you want to get on top of the crowd, you know, that's what he says, think like an immigrant. But to me, that's very individualistic. So I would say, if you really want to move ahead, you, your community, your family, right, together, then you need to think as an immigrant. And there are at least 5 reasons, you know, of this truth. Immigrants, they have a lot of optimism. And when we talk about the aspirations, the dreams and hope, the second one is that we are hungry for success and opportunities. The next one is that we take pride in our work. You know, it's like somebody working on a masterpiece, and you know that at the end, you can carve your initials into that piece. You know, you take pride on what you do. And the last piece is be willing to try new things. We are in a changing world. If you are standing still, guess what? The world will pass you by and you will be left behind. And the last piece is be persistent and please give back. Don't forget that sense of obligation and responsibility. And to be grateful. To me, that's the best way to be grateful, to pay forward, to give it back, to contribute, you know, so that this community and the nation can be a better place for everybody.
Waldo, this has been a pleasure and an honor to include you in this very important project. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much.
These life lessons are made possible in part by Lyons & Hole Site Contractors and by White Star Tours.